better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch is brought to you by Nedbank.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Nedbank Business Watch this Wednesday. It's a beautiful Wednesday afternoon, 2 p.m. Central African time. Happy to be your host. My name is Sifiso Mmalo.
And I am Nosilesi Tole, and today on the program, when it comes to turning big ideas into reality, one size does not always fit all. Nedbank is redefining possibilities with a flexible financing solution designed to move with you. Don't miss the conversation today as we unpack how Nedbank flexible financing solution can have you driving your dream car sooner than you think.
All right. Other things that we'll be looking at on the show today are really important developments. Well, it's two developments, and both of them have far-reaching implications for Eswatini's economy. The first one, the Finance Ministry announcing, of course, the sharp increases to levies on alcohol and tobacco products effective the 1st of September. Really caught the news the evening of yesterday when the news broke. Imported tobacco will rise from 7% to 12%, while locally manufactured tobacco jumps from 2% to 12%. Now, imported alcohol now sits at 10%. We're seeing that local alcohol is unchanged and it's sitting at 2%, and beyond the numbers, the definition of tobacco has been expanded to cover all forms of use. Our economist, Sanne Lesbia, joins us to unpack the drivers that are behind this move and what it means for businesses, our consumers, as well as the wider economy. Another development that we want to look on today is Eswatini's digital transformation that is getting a boost. The Ministry of ICT, it is in partnership with the United Arab Emirates, launching the free cutting-edge coding courses to tackle the country's skills gap. Now, these include artificial intelligence, data science, programming, and Android developer fundamentals, all aimed at opening new pathways for entrepreneurship and the digital economy. Dr. Henry Count Evans, the senior lecturer in journalism and mass communication at the University of Eswatini, will join us virtually to assess the viability of this initiative, as well as its potential to impact on the nation's future. Really, really important developments with far-reaching implications, as we said, happening here on the Nedbank Business Watch today.
But first, our business news.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
This is Nedbank Business Watch. You had two choices to make: the bad one, to not watch this show, and the good one that you have made to stay with us here. And now you get to enjoy our business news.
To drive export growth to European markets, the International Trade Center, backed by the European Union, is equipping local artisans and designers with the skills to meet European market demands. According to the International Trade Center consultant Heidi Strom, understanding Europe's strict standards and design expectations is essential for local products to succeed internationally.
The first thing that we've worked on is to create sort of an ideal customer, to make sure that we design products for a real customer. So we're not just, it's difficult to imagine sometimes what is a customer like in Europe, right? When it's far away, it's not like, we're not used to having Europeans all the time. So it's trying to put yourself in the shoes of a European customer and to think, okay, what does this person really need? So this is what we've been doing this morning, trying to make a more creative workshop around this. So to create sort of different kind of persons from Europe for whom we can make new products. So make specific products that would suit them. So this is really important because if we in Eswatini produce and make products that are really suited to a local market, it's not necessarily the case for an export market. So it's really important to understand the market where you're going. But then after that, we will also talk about the whole product development. We will talk about quality control, which is really important as well. We will talk about sustainability. So there's a lot of different issues that need to be treated when you try to export products to Europe.
Artisans say they now have a clearer understanding of the EU market and international trade knowledge they believe can help unlock new opportunities.
Sifunza tinto letinengi, especially customer care and the type of product langakhona we are just looking on the interior products like for decor and ornaments
we come across a lot of challenges with pricing because a lot of our products are priced for the local market. So this is helping us to consider all the important considerations as we price the products for shipping, packaging, and how to present the product well for the European market. Also in terms of designing the correct product that will sell in the European market, that is also something that we found useful in this particular training and many other trainings that ITC has given us through the support of EU. And as I prepare for the Paris Design Week, we are currently looking at all the spec sheets, your marketing strategy, how to sell the product to the European customer. So that's where I found the training very useful.
To me, it's about improving the product and how I can make it market ready and ready for export. I realized that there are some hiccups in my products that I still need to improve, and I'm happy that I'm here, and I am grateful for the European Union for sponsoring this. It's something that I didn't know I needed.
Eswatini is part of the EU-SADC Economic Partnership Agreement, which gives the country and 5 other SADC nations duty-free, quota-free access to the European market. The EU says the agreement is designed to boost trade, drive regional economic growth, and protect key sectors with favorable terms tilted towards African partners. But while the framework is in place, the Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade says Eswatini isn't yet reaping the full benefit. That is why the EU and the International Trade Center have stepped in with workshops like this one to close knowledge gaps, empower local businesses, and ensure the country takes full advantage of the deal on the table. Reporting, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Ezulwini.
Now, from the international front, Donald Trump's trade policies have left China's factory owners and workers scrambling to adjust and consider new markets. But will any of them move production to the United States? That's a big question, and we have a report.
President Trump ramping up trade tensions again.
The word tariff, music to my ears.
So we're in the realm of just endless tit for tat.
This just kind of indicates how much of a moving target this has really become.
At stake is hundreds of billions of dollars in bilateral trade and access to the world's single largest consumer market, backed by American spending power.
This trade war basically leaves no one untouched, whether that's investors, business people, or officials in any country.
It just seems like every manufacturer in China realizes that they need to have strategies in case things get worse.
2 things are becoming clear, though. One, that finding a replacement for the mighty US consumer is as essential as it is difficult. And two, that despite all the tariff chaos, Chinese manufacturers aren't rushing to shift production into the US.
Americans don't want to make spatulas. They want to eat hamburgers. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I want to eat hamburgers too, but I'm here in China making the spatulas to do it. Americans don't want these jobs. And to think that manufacturing would go back to the United States is a farce.
We basically saw in April that the US and China traded these tit-for-tat tariff hikes, which raised tariffs up to 145% for Chinese goods going to the US and 125% for US goods coming to China. In mid-May, we saw those tariffs reduced.
Still, Trump continues to make threats, including against countries that help China sidestep tariffs. Trade between the two nations has risen steadily for the last 25 years.
We're looking at basically $600 billion worth of goods traded between the two nations last year.
And with that has come a ballooning trade deficit. In 2024, the US imported nearly $439 billion worth of goods from China. But US exports to China totaled little more than $143 billion. That's about a $295 billion difference, or trade deficit.
Although Chinese exports to the U.S. account for something like 3% of GDP, once you take into the secondary effect, the loss of jobs, lower wages, potentially price cuts to get rid of inventory, then we're looking at a much worse situation and potentially a deflationary spiral.
And so, with Trump's trade assault whipsawing relations between the world's biggest economies, China's manufacturers are grappling for options. For one thing, US businesses and distributors who buy goods manufactured in China need time to plan orders. In an effort to sidestep the evolving tariffs, many companies in mainland China have adopted a so-called China Plus One model. India and Southeast Asia have benefited in particular.
Our first factory outside of China was in Cambodia, and it was during President Trump's first term. And it was really to test if we could project our manufacturing beyond China. Since 70% of our goods go to the United States, we did have to, of course, make cuts to our manufacturing staff.
We've seen a pretty big exodus to Southeast Asia to take advantage of those lower labor costs, but also for the proximity to Chinese raw materials.
30% of our volume is going to Europe. Presumably, we could say, well, let's stop US business, right? Let's focus on Europe. But then you have every single company and manufacturing firm focusing on a smaller market. Competition becomes even more fierce for you.
It's very hard to replace the US consumer. It's the biggest market, and the American consumers are very open to new ideas and trying new trends.
There's just no way that China can fill that volume of exports quickly, whether it's emerging markets or developed countries. But in the long term, they're hoping that these emerging markets will provide a way out.
There's no quick replacement for the US market. The spending power of the US consumer is so strong, even with tariffs, Chinese companies are not wholly scared off. Instead, it's about managing an uncertain relationship and planning for the worst.
Right, with exactly 13 minutes after 2, we close the curtain on our business news.
And thereafter, Sifiso will sit down, will be in conversation with a senior journalism lecturer at the University of Eswatini, Dr. Henry Count Evans, on the newly launched Udacity coding program. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back. 15 minutes after 2, government through the Ministry of Information, Communications and Technology. They are in partnership with they are in a important partnership for this particular development. We talk now to Dr. Henry Count-Evans on this development. Doctor, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us. We are looking at this Udacity coding program here with really groundbreaking ambitions, so to speak, and surely has brought a lot of hope for a lot of our young people in the kingdom of Eswatini. But if you read about it and you really look what they are trying to do, one of the striking words there is that they are describing it as cutting edge and accessible. In your view, I want to ask, what would make this initiative genuinely transformative for Eswatini, and perhaps what could then limit its impact?
No, thank you, Sfiso, for the invitation. So I think it's an exciting time that we live in. I think especially for the young people, the people that are gradually moving into the workspace, those that are already there. So when you look at the recently launched program, I mean, I just tried to register earlier this week, and I can tell you that there is a lot of exciting opportunity there in terms of studying. So you have tech skills that are in demand now. Maybe as a background, we need to talk about why is this key now. We are living in a world where I think on the 31st of July, the World Bank was reporting that we do have quite significant skills mismatch. Universities and colleges are producing people that are not 100% good fit in terms of what industry needs. So this initiative, I think, comes at that time where we need to reskill and upskill most of our workforce, and the skills that have been taught from AI, programming, these are skills that industry needs at the moment. And there is an opportunity for young people to get skilled, reskilled, and be a fit that we need for economic growth and to revitalize industrial growth in the country. Yes.
You look at the UAE, it is pretty much, one of the benchmarks for artificial intelligence, for coding, especially right now, because they've really stood up to say they want to be global leaders amongst the best in the world. But we've also seen such partnerships elsewhere in Africa. Some have succeeded, some have fizzled. What do you think determines whether such programs are indeed sustainable in the long run?
So I think it's a number of factors, but the first one that is key for me is accessibility. So it's easy to access the course, it's easy to get access and request it from the provider, but is it going to be easy for everyone across the country? So we all live, yes, in this digital world, but we're at different skills levels. So those who have graduated from university and colleges at a different level from those who do not have requisite skills, entry-level skills, for example. That's number one in terms of the technical proficiency of the different individuals that need to benefit. The second one is the cost of data for anyone who wants to join this. So you'd find that one of the success factors is to be affordability of data. So if you want to do this and you're in a remote area, or if you're unemployed, or if your parents do not have substantial income to sustain your data purchases, that's an issue. So we need to be thinking about maybe how these courses could be zero-rated. Maybe we need corporate partnership to get zero-rated courses so that the young people, most of them are not employed. They do not have that luxury of buying expensive data packages. So that's an issue. The third one has to do with the technical resources. Do we have the laptops? So if you're going to code, you cannot code easily from a phone. You need good laptops, and that's a barrier on its own. So we need to have those investments in terms of gadgets that can sustain coding on, and it's not your entry-level laptop. So those are the issues that I think we need to look at. We need to try and see how those youths that begin to learn can be given that support in terms of the literacy, the data, and the resources they need to succeed.
I do want to ask, because you speak on a very important assertion when you speak about a zero-rated approach. I suppose that speaks to equity. we look at Eswatini and the way that we are structured right now, access has been a key talking point, and we've seen, how the Minister for ICT has been quite keen on addressing that particular divide, the urban-rural divides that exist. How do we avoid a scenario outside of just, going with the zero-rated? What other strategies can we employ where these courses do not only serve a privileged minority with which, therefore, it reinforces inequality instead of reducing it?
That's a key issue. I think equality, all of us were worried about it. I think if quite correct, I think we now have quite a number of internet service centers across the country. I think most of the Tinkhundlas now have internet access. So I think the government has gone that direction, which is noble, which is something that we appreciate, but do we need to do more? Yes, we need to maybe equip these centers with more advanced computing systems. And we need to make these accessible to the young people that live in the rural areas. But not just that, I think even in town, it's not easy to get a young person who has access to a decent laptop that's at a Core i5 and above. So we need to think of equity, not just in terms of urban rural, but we do have quite substantial needs within urban areas themselves.
Another thing that worries me is the risk on brain drain. We are going to be successful training a generation of coders, and that's going to be beautiful, but we don't have necessarily enough local tech firms or industries that will absorb them. Do we then risk having to export all this important talent from this beautiful program to countries like South Africa or the UAE itself? And how can we make sure that that doesn't happen?
I think I see it differently. You see it as a risk, I see it as an opportunity. So if we're going to make sure that the local industry is sufficiently given the resources it needs, we have an opportunity to get our young people to work remotely, to move to these countries. And if you look at it positively, you're thinking of remittances. If we could have increased remittances where most of these individuals bring back into the country at least $400 or $500 a month, we are improving our forex reserves, and that's good for the country, it's good for our balance of trade. So yes, those are opportunities. I don't see them as risks, and I think we need to start thinking about that export as an initiative that works for the economy.
Doctor, I'm afraid we have run out of time. Hopefully we can expound on this conversation on other programs, hopefully, but this has been our time here for this particular development. It's very beautiful, the digital future for Eswatini. It looks really, really bright. Literally every month, if you pay attention, it seems as though there's a new development to really help, bolster our ICT sector. We just hope everything just comes into fruition, but the government is playing its part. We need the youth to wake up, as well as, give in some meaningful participation as well. And indeed, everything will be beautiful. Please stand by. After the break, the show continues.
Welcome back. You are still watching Nedbank Business Watch. In our conversation with Nedbank today, we are discussing flexible financing with the Bonginkosi Kumalo, who is the ABF specialist at Nedbank. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us in our studios this afternoon. Flexible financing, why is this a solution that matters now?
Thank you so much, Natsila, for having me here. The flexible financial solution, as a bank, we have tried to look into the economy part. So we've then tried to craft a solution that will allow all people hoping to own vehicles to be able to afford cars despite the pinch of the economy. So yeah, actually we've brought quite a number of solutions in that regard.
And the flexible financing, perhaps would you like to define it for us a little bit? What does it have to offer?
Oh, thank you, Natsila Kane. Yeah. Actually, we have noted as a bank that actually owning a car is a major milestone for many individuals and the families. So we've tried, looking to the economy, we've tried to craft some options that will be affordable to the clients, so that owning a car, it shouldn't come as a burden. So we have looked into solutions to allow clients to be able to own cars, especially nowadays things have changed. Owning a car is not like in the other years. It's actually, we have since discovered it's actually it's no longer actually a want, so it's a need. So as a bank, that is the part that we have tried to do to solution our clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
This financing solution, is it only for your clients, for specifically Nedbank clients, or what if I am not a Nedbank client, I don't bank with Nedbank, but perhaps would like to be afforded the same benefit?
It's okay, actually, vehicle financing, it's not only for our Nedbank clients.
Okay.
However, we do encourage that you join Nedbank, especially so that you can have the full package in terms of the discounts. So otherwise, in a nutshell, I'm saying Nedbank can finance. At Nedbank, we finance Nedbank clients and also non-Nedbank clients.
Okay. Yeah. Under this flexible financing solution, I understand that it covers both new and old cars, rather. Can you explain the T's and C's there, just the terms and conditions that apply, whether I want to buy a brand new car or I want to probably buy a second-hand car or a pre-owned car?
Thank you. Thank you, Natsila again. Okay. Yes, as a bank, yes, we do encourage buying of brand new cars. Remember, this is an asset. So the trick there, actually, in terms of the difference between the new and the older car, yes, we do buy second-hand cars, but then in terms of the tricks, especially for new cars, our limit is 84 months, which is 7 years.
Okay.
New cars, we can go up to maximum of 6 years, depending on the age of the car.
All right.
Yeah.
With the offerings, what I understand is with the new vehicles, there is a 0% deposit with a repayment of 84 months, and with used vehicles there is a minimum deposit of 5% with terms of up to 72 months. Can you explain on how the 0% deposit option works for new vehicles, just practically?
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah. Natsila, actually, for a brand new car, remember the car is brand new, like you're saying it, so there are no defects in the car. So that's why we give the full tenor, the tenor we are offering, the 84 months. Yeah, so in terms of the used car, normally there are defects, so that's why the tenor especially will be reduced, also because the car now has some defects, so that will require some small commitment to the client, but a fair commitment, like you have just mentioned, the 5% minimal deposit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, for the clients that want to approach Nedbank with regards to the solution, is there a minimum or a maximum amount that they can borrow to finance their dream vehicle?
Thank you, Natsina. Actually, at Nedbank, we practice what we say it's responsible lending. Yes, a client can get any car of his dreams. At Nedbank, we are trying to drive dreams for our clients, so that is not a problem. But then again, as I'm saying, we do the responsible, with the aspect of the responsible lending. Affordability of the car is actually based on the income of the client.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How do I then apply? How do the clients apply? Is the application the same whether I'm a bank or whether I bank with Nedbank or I don't bank with Nedbank? What's the process, the application process?
Application process is easier, not silly. With us, I think it's the same process across a Nedbank client or a Nedbank client. You just bring your payslip. You just bring us your payslip, so we calculate your affordability. Also, we do require that we see your bank statement, especially for people not banking with us. We request that they bring their bank statement so that we do a 360 assessment.
Okay.
Thank you.
What are some of the conditions that a used vehicle must meet to qualify for financing in terms of the lifespan or mileage?
Sorry,
What are some of the conditions that a used vehicle, if I'm not buying a brand new car under this financing solution, yes, what are some of the conditions that it has to meet in terms of,
Yeah, okay, no, thank you, Natsu. That one is a simple one. Actually, as a bank, we finance second-hand vehicles up to 3 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, so beyond that we don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the maximum repayment term for new vehicles? Does it affect the monthly installments?
Yes, monthly installments. Yes, it does affect monthly installment, but then in a nutshell, for a second-hand car, the repayment is up to 7 years. It's up to 6 years actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, for the client that wants to approach the bank for such a service, suppose then I do qualify, I bring the contract or my proof of earnings, and then the unfortunate happens, I am laid off at work and then I no longer am able to continue paying for the car. What are the processes thereafter?
Remember, Nutsile, this is an asset, it's self-secured.
Okay.
Yeah, so in that case, the bank engages with the client actually. You might be laid off, but you might find that you will still have some other source of income. So we encourage our clients that they come to the bank to put forward their story, put forward their situation, and we take it from there. Especially in a case like I've just mentioned, some clients you find that they will still have they had smaller other income. In that regards, the bank will try maybe to restructure the facility so that we cannot dispose the car.
Okay.
Yeah.
Khumalo, thank you very much for your time. That was Ibonge Nkosi Khumalo, the ABF specialist at Nedbank, and we were discussing all things flexible financing for especially cars. Now, do reach out to Nedbank in case you want to walk away with a new whip. This is Nedbank Business Watch. Stay tuned.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
All right, welcome back. It's 36 minutes after 2. You're still watching NetBank Business Watch. The Minister of Finance, Honorable Neil Reichenberg, has announced changes to the Alcohol and Tobacco Levy Act, effective on the 1st of next month. Levy rates on imported tobacco will rise from 7% to 12%, and locally made tobacco from 2% to 12%. Imported alcohol will be taxed at 10%, up from 7%, while local alcohol rates remain unchanged at 2%. Now, the definition of tobacco products has also been expanded to cover all forms of use. To break down the economic impact as well as the reasons behind this move is our economist, Sanele Sbiya, who joins us now via our Zoom video link. Sanele, very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for making time to join us here on the program. Such a really interesting policy shift here. You know, you look at what this says overall, but the first thing that we want to account to is what government has framed this as. They're framing it as an amendment to close gaps as well as to strengthen the levy. What, in your view, is driving such a sharp increase, especially on local tobacco? That one is quite sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Yeah, you can see that on locally produced tobacco products, you can see that it's around some 5% increase there. On imported tobacco, imported tobacco products, it's around 5% increment there, and then again 7% increment on locally produced tobacco products. So what we're seeing here with tobacco, Mr. Ngumalo, one of the issues that we must understand is whenever we talk of syntax, there are those what you call public health benefits, and what we're seeing as one of the leading factors towards that increment is actually just to actually discourage people from using those tobacco products, those tobacco-based products. So that one is one of those issues that we are looking into. And when you look at the way that locally produced, when you look at what the retail market there of tobacco, and when you look at the difference between locally and imported before this levy, it was a bit too high. And then what you then find is what we call a situation, or it's a situation of where you can buy the product where it's lower and sell it where it's higher. And we've seen that happening when you look at what we call these cigarettes that are brought in from Mozambique, because they don't get this levy. They get smuggled. They don't get levied into the country. So just to close that gap, to make sure that the market is able to compete, to compete at an equal footing, so that you also get your local producers to also get to be charged the same price as your imported producers, so that you are able to attain this public health objective that you so wish to pursue as a government. Because when you talk of syntax, part of it is more of a public health debate.
Public health debate is quite interesting, because indeed 2% to 12% is striking, for lack of a better term. So is that the economic interpretation, or rather rationale behind this steep rise, this 10%?
You know, there is something peculiar with syntax, Mr. Ngumalo. You know, governments always play with syntax on the pretext or under the confines of public health. But we know that you are talking of a habit-forming commodity, such that even when you increase, you know, no matter how much the price increases, I always tell people to say, just look back at COVID, how much people were paying for alcohol and cigarettes, and they were paying for that. It's a habit-forming commodity. So it becomes one of those guaranteed revenue streams for government. That's why every year they are going to go into that. But to circumvent the issues of lobbying, you know, from these bigger tobacco companies and these bigger, you know, alcohol companies, they then have to try find ways that of being smart around it. But the reason you put a tax on that and you pursue it so much is, yes, number one, you are trying to have the tax work as a deterrent. But then the question you should ask yourself is, how much of the tax must be infused to make it a deterrent? But the other objective is you are going to raise money, and with habit-forming commodities, Mr. Ngumaro, we know that people are always going to buy it, whether it's expensive or not.
It's quite interesting because I feel like you've just answered the question that I wanted to ask you on the economic impact, particularly looking at, you know, what is going to happen here in terms of consumer behavior. Are we likely to seeing reduced consumption from the people or just higher costs being absorbed? But I guess if we're being frank and we're being candid, we do want to say these are the kind of commodities that ride on addiction, so to speak, and therefore no reduced consumption, right?
Significantly. What you would have to ask yourself is, would we have a significant reduction in the consumption? But also, when you look at what government has tried to do with this time around is, when you look at alcohol, it seems that that government did listen to business to say, you know, we are now struggling because government has to manage those revenue objectives and those public health objectives and find a perfect balance. Because when you look at the levies for imported and locally produced alcohol, it has remained relatively the same and actually reduced for imported alcohol. So we've seen that reduction. So that means what we are seeing here was government coming into play and saying, you know what, I am going to ensure that I understand what business does. When you look at the increases for those imported alcoholic beverages, it seems they didn't go up as much because you also have to understand and balance between, you know, your economic objective and your public health objective. Business at the end of the day must survive, so you can't throttle business with that tariff, with that new rate. But in terms of whether you attain the public health goal, then now that becomes an issue that has actually been quite topical, and also given the fact that our borders are quite porous. Again, I'll take you back to COVID. We closed the borders, but still people were drinking lisoja, they were smoking Gran Turismo, and quite a lot of these, you know, smuggled brands gained prominence, such that even post the pandemic, when you walk into a shop, you will find that the retailers now went and brought those in because they had somehow created a sort of a clientele within Eswatini through those illicit means. So we've got to also think around how we close our porous borders and how we ensure that we are able to implement, Mr. Numa.
Right. I'm chuckling a little bit, and I'm not trying to be suggestive in any way, but I'm just impressed by your ability to really know that people were drinking what you call lisocha and smoking Gran Turismo there. But I do want to understand from a fiscal perspective, Sanele, what kind of revenue gains, because clearly there could be revenue gains here from a fiscal perspective. What kind of revenue gains could government realistically expect from this move?
There's a lot of money to be made here, Mr. Ngumalo, in terms of the revenues. I mean, if you look at the increases, imported tobacco increases by 5 percentage points. Imported alcoholic beverages, they're increasing by 3 percentage points. And then locally manufactured tobacco products increasing by 12 percentage points. It's only locally produced alcoholic beverages that are not increasing. So when I say those rates are increasing, Mr. Ngumalo, that means the government will be collecting more in terms of tax from big tobacco and big brewer in Eswatini. So we do expect government to get cushioned in terms of the revenues here. So that's why I've said it's an issue of trying to balance the revenue goal together with the public health goal, and also the fact that these are habit forming. Chances are you will still have the same number of people who are taking the commodity, and what you are now in instance doing is you are just increasing how much you are taxing them for taking that commodity, which you then take and invest back in your public health system so that you are able to deal with those respiratory type of illnesses, those alcoholic related illnesses and other illnesses that might arise due to this. So it's both a revenue and an expenditure type of balancing, while at the same time also trying to balance our public health system.
Well, Senator, thank you so much for your time. This afternoon, we are discussing this new levy adjustment, where, in essence, they may look like tax adjustments to you, but really they reach households, they reach businesses, they reach fiscal health as well as public health, as he espouses. This is Nedbank Business Watch. We have our market analysis after the break.
Have you ever noticed that some people love risk? Investing in high-wire ventures that pay off big. While others are after something low risk, perhaps a smaller reward too, but predictable. Something that runs like clockwork, you might say. Which brings me to the bonds. In the highly complex and interconnected financial world, bonds play a crucial role. They're part of what makes the global economy tick. The best way to think about bonds is they're actually a kind of loan, money lent by people like you and me so someone else can spend it or invest it. When that someone is the government, the money they borrow can fund all sorts of things, from schools and hospitals to space travel and new technologies. Hopefully, investments that will help the economy grow and create more jobs and greater tax revenue. So what's in it for me? In return, they promise to pay me back after a fixed period, but with interest. And there are a lot of bonds out there. If you add up all the bonds and everything else governments owe around the world, you get to a pretty big number. The IMF estimates $100 trillion. That's with a T. But the thing about bonds is that anyone can buy them. So let's try one out. I'm going to get a hypothetical 5-year government bond for $100. Let's start the clock. Every year that $100 is invested, it's earning interest, about 4% every year, right on time. Longer-term bonds of 10, 20, or 30 years often pay investors even more. So, while we wait, why are government bonds often seen as a safe investment? Well, because they're backed by the government's taxes, and so they're considered more likely to be paid on time. The trade-off is that they generally offer lower interest rates than bonds issued by corporations. Corporate bonds and investments often leave more room for risk, but offer bigger potential payouts too. 5 years later, I get back my investment with interest. Okay, not bad. If things go right, that is. Sometimes we get a wrench in the system. If the money is poorly spent or a country gets hit by a natural disaster, for instance, the government could then have trouble paying me back. But when the system is running well, public bonds can be a predictable win-win. Governments get money to build prosperity, and investors get paid back on time, with interest, a tidy sum for their patience, time after time.
Well, Welcome back to the program. Now for our market analysis segment, Toba Kamete, Treasury Sales Manager at Nedbank, joins me in studio. A very good afternoon to you, Kamete. I want to start off in SA perhaps. The CPI data came out for July and it led to 3.5% year-on-year. What drove the spike?
Good afternoon, Notile and our viewers. So yes, inflation increased in South Africa from 3% in June to 3.5% in July. This was mainly driven by increasing electricity prices, food prices, as well as water prices. So it's more utilities than anything. But it did, however, come in within market expectations. So markets had already priced in that the inflation will tick up to 3.5%. So we didn't move the needle much in terms of the indicators, as it had already been priced in. But we're just going to then see how the sub is going to maneuver around this increase that we saw.
Right, this increase. What could it mean for rate cuts, interest rate cuts, come September?
So we have seen the sub cut rates in the last two consecutive sittings. So with this, uptick, we are likely then to see a more cautious approach because then it means, with this easing comes, the big elephant in the room, which is inflation. So we are yet to see how they will respond to it. Likely maybe a pause in light of the increase in the inflation, but we were yet to get views on this, as this is statistics that have been released this morning.
All right. We'll cross over now to the US. What's your characterization of markets, especially in this particular moment ahead of the Fed Jackson Hole meetings expected this coming Friday, where Jerome Powell is also expected to give a speech on Friday?
Yeah, so trading is quite muted in the market. So market participants are on a wait-and-see kind of environment, where with the events that are coming up that you have just mentioned, they are waiting to see and get clues of the Fed's interest rate trajectory, or how they're going to be implementing monetary policies going forward. So markets are waiting to hear or for clues on what to look out for. We have the Fed's July minutes coming out today, this evening. So that is going to give a bit of information of what went down in the July Fed meeting. We're also then, as you've said, awaiting the Jackson Hole symposium that's starting tomorrow, with Powell delivering his speech on Friday. So it's a more of a muted environment right now.
With the Fed minutes coming out briefly, what are your expectations?
There's likely not going to be much from it, because most of the data that we've seen in recent times came out after that meeting. The job or employment numbers that came out were after just the following week after that meeting, as well as the inflation that came out last week. So, and also looking at how the voting was when it came to the decision that was taken to keep rates flat, you are likely not going to get much from the minutes, but on the Friday speech, you are likely then going to get something because of recent economic indicators that we've seen.
All right, let's get into the numbers this afternoon, from commodities to equities. What's happening with the markets?
All right, in terms of commodities, oil is doing quite well. We've seen the price of oil go slightly higher. This is due to a number of factors, but I'll just highlight two. The first one is demand of oil in the US increased significantly from a report that was published by the American Petroleum Institution today, well, rather yesterday, showed that the
drew about 2.4, they drew down 2.4 million barrels last week. The market was expecting a 1.2 million decline, actually. So it grew about 3.8 million.
An uptick.
Yes, so there's an uptick in the demand of oil in the U.S. Economy. There's also optimism after the recent talks and engagements that the U.S., Europe, and Ukraine and Russia, the different engagements that they've had with the U.S. So there's optimism of a, peace deal being made in that conflict that we've seen go on for quite a long time. So that has sort of given oil a bit of, breathing ground as well.
All right.
Gold, on the other hand, it is trading at the lowest levels that we've seen in 3 weeks, but it has today just ticked up slightly, 0.31%. Otherwise, because of the uncertainty in the market, trading is quite muted as well when it comes to gold. We're likely then going to see a movement after we receive more information on what to expect in the market.
All right. In our equities today, what's happening in that regard?
All right, so in terms of equities, I'll start with the S&P 500. It is down about 0.59%, trading at $6,411.37, mainly due to tech stocks. So we've seen quite a number of share prices for tech companies going down. Due to a number of reasons. One of them is the involvement of the U.S. government in tech companies. There's been quite a few unconventional or unusual incidents. One being the U.S. government getting or buying a stake into Intel and other chip companies. The second being allowing NVIDIA to sell their AI chip, the H20, to China, and the US getting 15% of the revenue. So that influence of the government in the tech space has sort of, given investors jitters in terms of how far that would go. Otherwise, the other indicators are in the green, with the FTSE trading at 9.2 pounds, up 0.27, and the JSE all share also up 0.05% slightly.
All right. And moving on to our foreign exchange, our currencies, the Lilangenyo, the rand, is not performing so well, I would say. What's driving this decline?
So it's, we've seen the rand from yesterday just tick up from the levels that we saw probably on Monday, which were a bit better, but we are trading on average against the USD at 17.7.
It's an all-red sea today.
Yes. So it's quite red, but as you can see, the percentages are quite minimal, so it shows that trading is muted. There's no big jumps of volatility that we are seeing in the market. So it's more of a wait and see on the information that is expected to be released into the market.
Okay.
Otherwise, there aren't really any big factors that are contributing to the levels that we're seeing.
All right, Toba Kamese, thank you very much for your insights. That was Toba Kamese, Treasury Sales Manager at Nedbank, just filling us in terms of the numbers and what investors should be on the lookout for. This has been Nedbank Business Watch from myself and the team. Until the next edition of the show, take care.
Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch was brought to you by Nedbank.
completely puffy.